Hello everyone, and welcome back to the JavaFX course. Today, we're going to go over part 3, Animation in Practice. We're going to learn some guidelines, tips, and tricks on how exactly we should use animations in JavaFX, and when we should and shouldn't use it. So, the best way to do this is with practice. So I've already made a mock user interface for us to use that you might have seen from a previous video. So, what we're going to do now is try to animate all the elements to create a really nice user experience. So after looking at it, what elements do you think we should animate? Well, let's take a look at this profile picture over here. Let's say that you wanted to add a feature where the user could update their profile picture with a new one. Well, you don't really want to add a completely new button on this interface that says update profile picture because that would start clogging up the UI. So let's take a look at how other websites do it. For example, Facebook. On their site, when you hover your mouse over the profile picture, an animation shows up where a button fades in. Now, they use animation for this because imagine what it would look like if a random button just popped in out of nowhere. That would be sort of weird and intruding for the user. So with a nice fade animation, it makes sense that the button exists over there. I've already done this, and we can take a look at how exactly it would look. Using a simple fade transition that you've already learned about, when I put my mouse over, the button shows up, and when I leave, it goes away. And it looks really nice, and it's a perfect way to add in buttons without putting them elsewhere on the user interface. The next best way to use animations is on the user interface elements when an app starts up. Instead of having these elements pre-exist on the page, we can create an empty page instead and have the elements move in so they look like they belong there. Now, a simple way to do this would be to simply fade all the elements in after a blank page starts up, but we're going to try something a little more complex. We're going to move all of the elements from outside of the pane to the inside. For example, this image view is going to be on the left and we're going to move that in. These two labels, the title and the subtitle, are going to be on the top and move inwards, and these two, the photos and followers, are going to move from the bottom to the inside. So, how exactly will we do this? Well, one thing to keep in mind is you don't want to just start the animations as soon as the app starts up, because then users might not even notice that it occurred. So you want to give maybe a 1 second gap. So we're going to use a pause transition for that, and for all these other animations that are going to happen at the same time, we're going to use a parallel transition. Now, I've already done this fairly quickly to show you. For example, we have a parallel and a sequential transition, and then first we create the pause, then we're going to translate the image from the left using a translate X, then we're going to do the same thing for a title, except this will be a translate Y, etc, etc. I've done this all together. At the end, we're going to add all of these to the parallel transition, and then we're going to add the pause and the parallel to the sequential transition, and at the end we're going to play this. So let's take a look at how this looks. So with just that simple code, we've already got a nice animation in the beginning that's pretty interesting. But one thing you've probably noticed is that this code is extremely repetitive. That occurs for every single element. And if you were to have a few more complex layouts, it would be pretty much very extraneous and boring to do. So I went ahead and created a cool library called Sprint. Now Sprint is simply a jar file that you can drag in and use as a library in your project, but it makes animations much simpler. So I'll show you how exactly you can use it. So believe it or not, all of this code, about 60 lines or so, was condensed into just this much, the function called animate sprint. So let's see how it works. First, you're just going to want to create a new instance of the sprint class, and you want to pass in a parameter of the first node you want to animate. For example, this was the stack pane of the image in the button. Next, ignore this for now, but we can use interpolators, and I'll talk about that later. Instead of a pause transition, we can easily just use this method called wait, and pass in the amount of time, the seconds, we want to wait for. Then, in the actual animation, all you need to do is put in the actual movement you want to do. For example, here I use move from, but it already comes pre-built with things like rotate to and rotate from, fade in, fade from, and all of these things are already there. So for example, when I want to move from, I just set the duration, the X and Y values, and that's it, I'm done. So essentially, for translating an image, which was all of this code, it's become just one single line. I can do it, and I can easily swap between nodes by setting the set node, switch over to the other labels, do the exact same thing. At the end, I just hit sprint.sprint, and I'm done. It's that much easier to use, and I highly recommend that you try this out. So let's go over this one again, the interpolators. Sprint interpolators is a class that comes with Sprint and has many more interpolators than the ones built into JavaFX. For example, let's run this one instead of the old one. This is an interpolator called exponential. Just by comparing it, you can tell that it looks a lot nicer. And this is a list of all the ones that come built in, and they're all pretty cool. For example, elastic looks really nice as well. It gives a nice rubber band effect, or I could use something like bounce to make the elements look like they're bouncing on a wall. So all of these interpolators can make your animations look a lot nicer. And so another thing is, a brief overview on how it works is, by default, all of these transitions are going to be added as a parallel transition, as in they're all going to occur at the same time. But if you wanted to create a sequential transition, all you need to do is add in .wait. And if you wanted to create a normal sequence without any gap like we had before, you can just enter in 0.0. And now what this code would do is it would execute all of these animations in parallel, but then this would occur as a series. It's as simple as that. So overall, with Sprint, you can simplify all of your parallel and sequential transitions and make animations a lot quicker. So with that, that's the end of this lesson, and I hope to see you in the next video.